Millionaire catches wife. Humiliating black daughter of cleaner. But what he did shocked all. Morning came soft and gray. The rain had washed the city clean, but the house still carried last night inside its walls. Richard stood at the kitchen island, pouring coffee he did not taste. The headline from the gala was already everywhere. People argued on their phones as if a child's pain were a game to win. He turned the screens face down. He did not want noise. He wanted truth. He whispered the title to himself like a compass. Millionaire catches wife. Humiliating black daughter of cleaner. But what he did shocked all. It sounded loud in an empty room, and it reminded him that doing the right thing is not a one-night show. It is a road you walk every day, even when no one claps. Grace and Amelia were not in the house. They were safe in their small apartment with new locks and quiet neighbors. Richard texted, "Good morning. I'm here if you need me." Grace wrote back, "We're okay. Thank you." Amelia added a little seed emoji. He smiled. He set the phone down and watched the coffee steam rise like a small flag. He had things to do. Ms. Rivera had sent a list last night. Scholarships, a hotline for domestic workers, free legal clinics on Saturdays, driver pickups for night shifts. It was long work, slow work, and that meant it was real. By 9, the front gate filled with cameras. Victoria had arrived with a TV crew. She wore a pale coat and sunglasses, the kind people think will hide their eyes. A well-known host walked beside her, the kind who speaks like a friend and stirs a storm with a spoon. Richard opened the door before the bell rang. He stepped onto the steps and raised a hand. "No," he said. The host tried to smile. "Just a quick comment. The public deserves balance." Richard kept his tone level. "Balance is not when a bully gets equal time with the child she hurt," he said. "Balance is when the person with power stands beside the person with none." The cameras whirred. Victoria pulled off her glasses. "You are destroying me," she said. "Over a maid. Over a stain that didn't exist." He looked at her. "The stain exists," he said. "It was on your voice." The host adjusted her mic. "Mr. Thompson, is it true you plan to remove your wife from several charities?" "I can't remove her," he said. "But I can resign." And I did. Last night. He pointed down the hill at a brick building with a blue door. "If you want a story, go there. Ms. Rivera is meeting with 10 workers who were threatened with losing their jobs if they asked for safety. Some have texts. Some have old pay stubs with missing hours. Some are scared and they are coming anyway. That's the story." The cameras did not turn. Victoria's team had paid for their time. Richard lowered his hand. "Okay," he said. "Then here's my only comment." He looked straight into the main camera. "If you live in a big house and a child or a worker feels small in it, your house is broken. Fix your house." He went back inside, closed the door, and the thick wood made the silence kind again. He called Ethan. "Let's keep the gate shut," Richard said. "All day." "Already on it," Ethan answered. "Also, there's something you should see." Within minutes, Ethan walked into the study with a small stack of printed emails and a thumb drive. "Pulled from the archives," he said. "Staff complaints from the last 2 years. Not to HR, to each other. Group chat stuff. Quiet, scared, but detailed. A pattern." Richard read slowly. Words like, "made me scrub again," "called me names," said, "don't look her in the eye." Each note felt like a match in his chest. He had lived with this pattern and missed it. He closed his eyes for a moment. "We'll take every one of these seriously," he said. "We'll reach out one by one. No group blast, no show. Respect, case by case." He drove to the Blue Door building after lunch. The community room smelled like coffee and pencil shavings. Folding chairs sat in a circle. On the wall, someone had taped a paper sign in big letters. "You are safe here." Ms. Rivera greeted him with the warmth of someone who had been cold for a long time and refused to pass that cold to others. "We have guests," she said, "and some stories you need to hear." Grace sat in the circle with Amelia, who held the paper flower from the gala. Next to them sat a gardener named Leo, a nanny named Evie, a night nurse named Alejandra, and a cook named Marine. A young man in a maintenance uniform perched near the door like a bird ready to fly if the room changed shape. Ms. Rivera spoke first. "We share only if we want," she said. "We speak from our own life. No guessing at others. No names we don't need. We do not ask people to relive pain if that hurts more than it helps. Okay?" Heads nodded. Evi lifted her hand. "I want to tell mine," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I worked for a house 2 streets from here. Not yours, Mr. Thompson." She smiled a little. The wife also wore silver gowns. She would say, "Look at me when I talk to you," and then say, "Why are you staring?" If the child spilled milk, she would make me kneel and wipe it with my shirt because she said paper towels were wasteful. Once, when I asked for a day off to take my mother to the clinic, she laughed. Not loud, just enough to make the air feel smaller. She said, "You people always have a sick relative." I left the next month. I did not say why. I needed a reference. She unclenched her hands and looked down at her palms as if checking for scars you couldn't see. "I am not telling this for revenge," she said. "I am telling it so no one can say, 'I did not know.'" Richard felt the words sink deep. "Thank you," he said. "I know thank you is small next to what you carry. But it is real." A boy named Tomas, the maintenance worker, spoke next. "Some rich people are kind," he said. "Some are bored. Some are angry every day, like the anger is a dog they keep feeding. I fixed a broken camera once and found another hidden one in a smoke alarm. Pointed at a shower. I told my boss. He fired me. Said I trespassed. I didn't go to the police because I was scared. I had no papers then. Now I do. I still feel scared." His hands trembled. Ms. Rivera slid a tissue across to him, not because she thought he needed to cry, but because the gesture said, "You can if you want." "We can report that," she said. "If you want, we can go step by step." He nodded, not ready, but not alone. When the circle ended, Amelia waited until most people had left. Then she tugged Richard's sleeve. "Can I show you something?" she asked. She led him to a side room with art tables and a wall covered in drawings. She pointed to one. A big house stood in rain. A small figure held an umbrella over another small figure. The umbrella was too small to cover both of them. Yet the rain missed them anyway. "I made this last night," she said. "It's called the umbrella that learned." He felt his throat get tight. "What did it learn?" he asked. "To open wider," she said. He nodded, because this was the best sentence he had heard all week. The next turning point came with a knock after dark. Ethan opened the door and led a woman into the study. She wore a red coat and carried a worn folder. "Penelope Hart," she said, offering her hand. "I used to be your assistant. Years ago, before I left for Boston." Richard frowned. "Penelope, of course. Please, sit." She sat on the edge of the chair like a runner who might bolt if the gun sounded. "I saw the gala video," she said. "It woke up something I tried to bury." She placed the folder on the desk. "I kept this because I felt crazy," she said. "I wrote down what I saw in your house back then. Victoria's words, the way she treated people. The day she told a delivery driver to use the back door, then made him wait in the rain because his shoes were muddy. I told myself it wasn't my business, but it was in my mouth all the time like a sour taste. When you spoke last night, the taste changed. I thought you should have this." Richard opened the folder. Inside were dates, notes, small details that only someone who really watched would write. He saw the pattern stretch back further than he had admitted to himself. He felt both shame and relief. Shame because he had lived beside it. Relief because the truth was not new. It was just finally allowed to stand up. "Thank you for keeping this," he said. "And for bringing it now." Penelope's eyes shone. "I didn't keep it to be noble," she said. "I kept it because I couldn't forget. I'm tired of carrying it alone." He nodded. "You're not alone anymore." Victoria's pushback came fast and sharp. Her lawyer filed a motion for an emergency restraining order against Richard. The claim said he had defamed her and orchestrated a hostile campaign. Nora texted him, "Don't panic. We'll answer. We'll tell the judge about the child, the recordings, the pattern. Be calm. Bring facts." The hearing was set for Friday. That gave them 3 days to gather statements without turning anyone's life into a circus. Ms. Rivera and Nora worked like a team that had trained together for years. They prepared short, clear declarations from Grace, from Ethan, from Mr. Alvarez the gardener, from 2 part-time cleaners. No essays. Just truth in straight lines. Dates, words, actions seen and heard. On Wednesday night, a rock shattered Grace's kitchen window. No one was hurt. The rock landed on the floor like a bad word. Amelia screamed once, then pressed both hands over her mouth. Grace pulled her into the hallway away from the glass. Richard arrived 10 minutes later with Ethan and 2 patrol officers who had taken Miss Rivera's call seriously. The air smelled like dust and fear. "We're okay," Grace said, voice tight but steady. "Just angry cowards." Richard crouched and picked up the rock. Tape wrapped around it. A note read, "Liars." "Go back." His jaw clenched. He handed the rock to the officer with gloves. He did not make a speech. He changed the locks. He upgraded the security. He slept on the couch that night outside their door, not inside the apartment. Outside, in the hallway chair with a blanket and a thermos of coffee, because the message was simple. I will not leave you alone to face the noise I called down by saying the quiet thing out loud. At 3 in the morning, Amelia cracked the door and looked at him. "Still there?" she whispered. "Still here," he whispered back. She nodded and closed the door. He stared at the exit sign until it blurred, and then the sun smudged the night away. Friday arrived like a bell. The courtroom was small, all wood and quiet rules. Judge Marisol Kent took the bench with a calm face and a sharp gaze, the kind that says, "I have seen storms before. I do not clap for thunder." Victoria sat with her lawyer, polished and pale, the picture of a woman who thought the room would be her mirror. Richard sat with Nora. Ms. Rivera sat behind them with Grace and Amelia, not to perform, just to witness. The judge called the case. "I have read the filings," she said. "Mrs. Thompson seeks a restraining order against Mr. Thompson for alleged defamation and coercion." Mr. Thompson filed a response with exhibits. "We will proceed." Victoria's lawyer spoke first. He painted Richard as a man angry at a failing marriage, a man who used charity language to shame his wife, a man with a sudden passion for justice that looked convenient. He called the gala a stunt. He said Victoria had only tried to set household standards. He did not say the word child. The judge listened without moving. Nora rose. She did not raise her voice. "Your Honor," she said, "we submit recordings from the study and camera footage from the home. We submit declarations from staff who felt safe to speak only after Mr. Thompson acted. We also submit a report from Ms. Rivera's organization that documents patterns of verbal and emotional abuse toward domestic workers in this city. We argue that speaking the truth in a public space is not defamation. It is protection." The judge nodded. "Play the recording." The room filled with Victoria's words. They sounded different in a courtroom. Harder, lonely, final. Victoria stared at the table. The judge took off her glasses and set them down. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "do you deny that is your voice?" Victoria swallowed. "No," she whispered. "But thank you," the judge said. She turned to Grace. "Ms. Brooks," she said gently, reading from the declaration, "would you like to speak? You do not have to." Grace stood. Her hands did not shake. "Your Honor," she said, "I worked for the Thompsons for 6 years. I kept my head down because I needed my job. My daughter is 12. She is good and kind. She was made to scrub a clean floor with her bare hands while Mrs. Thompson told her, 'People like you need to learn your place.' My child is not a lesson. She is a child." The judge held her gaze for a long second, then looked at Amelia. "Do you want to say anything?" she asked, voice even softer. Amelia stood too. "I drew a picture," she said. "Can I show it?" The judge smiled, small but real. "Yes." Amelia walked to the clerk and handed over the umbrella that learned. The judge studied it for a moment. When she returned it, her eyes were brighter. "Thank you," she said. "It will not be part of the legal record, but it is part of the human one." The judge ruled within minutes. The request for a restraining order is denied, she said. I also admonish all parties to refrain from contact outside counsel. Mrs. Thompson, words have weight. Mr. Thompson, publicity has heat. Pick truth over heat. We are done. Her gavel fell like a period. Victoria stood so fast her chair scraped. For a moment her anger rose like a wave. Then it broke. She sat again and looked smaller than she had ever allowed herself to look in public. She pressed her lips together and did not speak. Nora gathered her files. Richard exhaled for what felt like the first time all week. Outside the courthouse the air felt bigger. Reporters shouted questions. Richard raised one hand and gave the same answer he always gave now. "Fix your house," he said. "And if you already think your house is fine, ask the quietest person in it if that's true." He walked with Grace and Amelia to the curb. A boy from Amelia's school stood there with his mother. He wore a backpack and an expression that tried to be brave. "Hi," he said to Amelia. "I'm Jaden. We're in science together. People at school were talking. I told them to stop." He held out a small plant in a plastic cup, the kind teachers give out for experiments. "Bean plant," he said. "Fast grower. If you want it." Amelia took it like a medal. "Thank you," she said. They grinned at each other, kids in a giant world that had tried to make them tiny. The world shrank a little to fit them better. Weeks folded into each other like pages. The program grew. The Saturday legal clinic filled every time they opened the door. A woman came in with a baby on her hip and left with a plan. A man came in with a quiet voice and left with a phone number for counseling and a note that said, "You matter." Richard spent hours at a whiteboard drawing boxes and arrows to build a fund that would live longer than a news cycle. He named it the Umbrella Fund because of a drawing made by a brave 12-year-old. He asked Ms. Rivera to run it her way. She agreed only if the board included workers, not just donors. He said yes. He meant it. He stepped back. One afternoon, Amelia stood on a wooden stage in the community center with a microphone that squeaked. The room was full of families, volunteers, and a small row of city officials who had found a way to sit without acting important. "I used to think grown-ups always know what to do," Amelia said. "But they don't. They learn. Sometimes too late, but they can learn." She smiled at Richard, not because he was a millionaire, but because he was someone who had learned in front of her. "I want to thank Ms. Rivera and my mom," she went on. "And I want to say something to kids who feel small in big rooms. You are not small. The room is wrong size. We will fix the room." The applause felt like light rain on a hot day. Not a storm, a relief. Victoria did not vanish. People like her rarely do. She tried new stories on new shows. Some believed her. Many didn't. One night, long after most of the talking had cooled, she asked to meet. Nora arranged it in a quiet office with glass walls that made lies feel unsafe. Victoria sat down without a team. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I'm here because I don't like who I hear when I play that recording. I want to figure out when I turned mean." Richard waited. He had learned not to fill every silence. "My mother talked about people like Grace the way some people talk about the weather," Victoria said. "Always there. Always beneath you. I thought I was better than that because I learned the right words. I wasn't. I learned the words and kept the same heart." Her eyes were damp. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm telling you, I'm going to try to do different work now. Quiet work. Work where no one claps." Richard nodded once. "Good," he said. He did not offer applause. He did not offer a door back into his life. He offered the only fair thing left to offer, space for her to do what she said without him in the way. The last turning point came on a day that looked like the first one, with heavy clouds and a shy sun. The community center hosted its first job rights fair. Tables lined the gym. On one, a stack of small cards read, "Contract, chic promise." Another said, "Your name is not girl." Another said, "Breaks are the law." Grace stood at a table labeled Mentors, smiling that careful smile she had learned to let be real again. Amelia ran the sign-in with Jaden. Mr. Alvarez taught kids how to start seedlings in egg cartons. Richard worked the back of the room near the donations box, answering quiet questions, handing out coffee, filling in name tags when someone's hand shook. He felt more useful here than he ever had in a boardroom full of men who wore the same watch. A man in a suit stopped at the door and looked around like he had entered the wrong planet. He said, "I'm here because my daughter is 8, and she asked me yesterday if our house is safe for the people who help us. I didn't know how to answer without lying. I want to make it true." Miss Rivera handed him a pamphlet and a pen. "Start with this," she said. "Then go home and ask your house who feels small. If anyone says yes, believe them." The man nodded. His face softened. He took off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. "Where do you need me?" he asked. Ms. Rivera pointed to the table with the egg cartons. "There," she said. "Learn to plant." When the fair ended, the gym fell quiet. Folding chairs scraped across the floor like a friendly thunder. Amelia walked to the center of the room and looked up at the high windows. "Remember the title?" she asked Richard. "The big one everyone posted?" He smiled. "I remember." She took a deep breath. "I think we need a new ending to it," she said. "Not about being shocked. About what comes next." He nodded. "You write it," he said. She picked up a marker and wrote on a leftover poster board in big, neat letters. "Millionaire. Catches wife. Humiliating, black daughter of cleaner." But what he did shocked all, and then he kept going. She handed him the marker. "Your turn," she said. He added a line under it. He fixed his house. He helped fix other houses. He learned to open the umbrella wider. They taped the poster to the wall. It looked simple. It was the hardest work he had ever done. That night, Richard walked through his own home with the lights off, using only the window glow to guide him. He paused at the bathroom where everything had started. He ran his palm over the cool marble. The tile did not care about the past. It reflected what stood over it. He whispered the full title again, this time like a promise, not a headline. "Millionaire Catches Wife. Humiliating Black Daughter of Cleaner." But what he did shocked all. He let the words settle. Then he added his true ending out loud, to the quiet room and to himself. And what he kept doing mattered more. Outside, the garden rustled. Tiny leaves pushed at the air the way hope pushes at fear, not with shouting, but with steady work. In the guest room window, he could see the egg carton seedlings that Amelia and Jaden had started. They sat in a neat row, waiting for morning. He smiled. He switched off the last lamp and walked toward sleep with a feeling he recognized but had not felt like this since he was a child. Not pride, not relief, responsibility. It fit him like a real coat. And that is how the story kept going, past the first storm, past the loud rooms, past the part where people said "shocked" and moved on. It kept going because a man who had money chose, again and again, to use it like a door, not a wall. It kept going because a mother chose courage over silence, and a child chose drawings over despair, and a city chose to listen. It kept going because the title of the story was never meant to be the end. It was a light over the first step, and the steps after that were the real work. The work that turns a headline into a life that other people can stand under when the rain comes.